Men's health is a sticky topic for some, and we know from experience not everybody is equally comfortable to deal with their health issues, and many men report that they are less eager to go for medical help or to admit that they have a problem and reach out. I'm Sinta Ebersohn, and I'm the founder of Get Up and Grow. And with me here today, I have Leanne Kanzler, who's going to share her story with us about the health journey that she has been on with her husband. Leanne, thank you so much for taking this time to talk to us, and welcome you.
Hi, Sinta. Thank you for inviting me. We met on LinkedIn when I was talking about this with some of my colleagues, and I was honoured that you thought this was something that you would like to share with your listeners as well, because men's health is a huge topic that is really not discussed enough. And my journey has really led me to focus on this a little bit more in terms of, I do want to talk about it, and I will let your listeners know that this is not going to be an easy conversation for me. So it may not be an easy listen, but if it helps, hopefully more than one man, to take action on his health, if it helps the women listening to not give up on pushing their partners or their sons or friends, whoever it is, to get help, then it will be absolutely worth it. So I guess, do you want me to just sort of dive in and tell the listeners what's happened?
Yes, please do. Tell us your story and share with us what your experience has been so far.
Okay. So my husband and I have been married for 5 years, together 10, and we have an absolutely beautiful relationship. Both of us were in not so nice relationships for about 20 years before, we left that relationship and found each other. So it's pretty special to find love the second time round. And I noticed probably, well, we're in July already, so it would have been well over a year ago that I noticed something was wrong. And I remember complaining to my girlfriends that my husband was not right, and I was scared that it was early onset dementia. He's a little bit older than me, but not old enough to think that he's old enough to have dementia, that there was something wrong, that if he had one glass of wine, he was slurring his words. He was absolutely exhausted, going to bed at, 7 o'clock, and really like, oh my God, I'm so tired. And he wouldn't go to the doctor, and he wouldn't do anything about it. He just said he was really stressed at work and there was a lot going on. And I remember thinking there's far more to this, and I actually don't know if I can cope being with someone who is just ignoring their health, because it was extremely stressful for me. And it didn't matter what I said or what I did. He just denied that there was a problem. And then back in August, I actually went to his GP with him. First time I had ever been to his GP, and I'm still pretty angry about this, because his GP ignored me. And his GP basically said, oh, just stop drinking, you'll be right. And I was sitting there, and I actually said to the doctor, I'm pretty sure this happens, this slurring of the words and stuff, it's starting to happen when he has not had a drink. And he's having half a glass of wine, and then I'm noticing the problem. I'm getting home from work and I'm asking him, how much have you had to drink today? And he's saying nothing. So I don't know if the doctor thought that he was drinking behind my back or drinking a lot more than he said he was. But I recently found out the doctor didn't even make a note that I had attended and that this was a problem. He simply wrote down that Grant had come in to get some scripts for his blood pressure. That's it.
Wow.
And I'm pretty pissed off about that, actually.
I can imagine. That must have been very frustrating at the time.
Oh, absolutely.
There was a little piece of me that I've heard. Sorry, it's a story that I've heard so many women tell me, and I've experienced it myself also. Many men tend to just ignore the symptoms and have some fear or issue with admitting that they need help.
Yeah, and I'm starting to believe that this is why women live longer than men, because women will take action. You know,
Mm.
if I was slurring my words, I would be at the doctor the next day. Like, I
Yes.
wouldn't be waiting months or weeks to see what happened. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm slurring my words at night. I'm really tired. There's something wrong. There's
Mm.
no way in hell I would ignore that situation. So that was back in August. And then in January 2nd, he had a seizure.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was really scary because it looked like he was having a stroke, and he couldn't breathe. It only lasted a very short time, thank goodness, but it was terrifying. We both actually thought he was going to die then and there in our driveway at home. He came good, and the doctors couldn't figure out what it was, and they sent him off. They wanted him to do an MRI, but they were busy, blah, blah, blah. So we went home. We went on a little holiday with the family for 4 days. We had the referral, and the first time he could get an MRI was a month later.
Mm-hmm.
So in that time, he was being more mindful of not drinking and that sort of thing. But you know, we didn't really know what was happening. We just thought that maybe he had a TIA, which is I can't remember the long name from it, a trans something or other. It's basically a mini stroke that a lot of people have, and it's not uh, a life-threatening condition.
Mm.
So we were just happily ignoring that and hoping that that's all it was. From the MRI, he actually went to the hospital by himself because he wasn't allowed to drive for a month after the seizure. So he was very excited to get to drive, and he went by himself. And what happened was he had came out of the MRI with a doctor standing there telling him that he had a brain tumor.
Sure.
Um, yeah, so he called me, and I was actually working, and he asked me to come and pick him up because he wasn't allowed to drive. Um, then we had to wait another 10 days for surgery. Then we had to wait another week where we were told it was brain cancer. And
Mm.
it was stage 4, glioblastoma, pretty much the worst cancer you can get. So that was back in February. And since then, it's been chemotherapy, radiation, um, neither of which have worked. We were told last week that the prognosis has gone from 2 years to, if he makes it till Christmas, that'll be good, which was the words of the doctor. I didn't think it was very good, and yeah, it's been really tough.
Wow,
But
Leanne, that is really difficult. That must have been really difficult to get that
mm,
diagnosis, that feedback from the tests. Can we take
yeah,
a moment and because I'd like to ask you how that period of waiting feels. I know I've experienced it myself because I've had cancer, and I
mm,
remember, and some of the people that I've mentored through similar situations also, I remember that period of waiting from something that happens, the incident, until you get the opportunity to actually go and have a scan or a test. And then you wait for the results and you wait for the feedback from the doctors.
mm,
How was that for you? Because for me, it was absolutely terrifying. And I wished I could make it all happen faster because that uncertainty and the fear around it is quite terrible.
yeah. There's a lot of anxiety around it, and you know, my husband has a tendency to ignore things, so he just got on with work and got on with life and
Mm.
pretended it didn't happen. And to be 100% honest, I think I did the same
Mm.
because no one at that point had mentioned that it might be a brain tumor. You know, they just said, oh, it could have been a stroke. And I thought, okay, cool, he's had a stroke, but he's good, so nothing to worry about.
Mm.
It was after the surgery that probably, yeah, it was the 14th of Feb, Valentine's Day, and he got the actual results on the 21st of Feb, and he was in hospital that whole time. Um, and he did have some adverse reaction because the tumor's where he speaks, so he was having a lot of trouble speaking,
Oh.
and that's still an issue now. So it was in that 7-day period while he was at hospital. He had a few more seizures. We didn't know what it was. We didn't know how bad it was. Um, and you actually get very little information, I thought. You know, there
Mm.
was still no suggestion that it could be cancer. how bad it was going to be. It was, I don't know, we were in this like daze, this really big daze. And I know a lot of people these days would jump onto Google, and I am extremely grateful that we did not do that. Our
Why is
doctor
that?
actually, well, we wanted to hear it from the doctor first. We didn't want to scare ourselves with loads of information. And I'm in a support group now, a GBM support group. If there's anybody who has glioblastoma and they're feeling alone in this, there is a fabulous support group called Thrivers to Survivors with a lot of amazing information. And I actually find that we get more information from that group than we do from the doctors. And it's really quite fascinating, and it's very encouraging and supportive. But, I guess this is really about men's health, and I can't help but keep on going back to what would have happened if 6 months before the seizure, he had pushed the doctor for more tests, or if I had pushed the doctor for more tests. But I think some of the time we just don't know what to ask for. And if the doctor isn't wised up on, well, let's just chuck you in for an MRI, let's do a CT scan, let's do a blood test, let's do something. I think as people who aren't in the medical field, it's important that we just say, you know what, we want a test. I don't care what the test is, just give me a test. Just tell me what I need to know that I'm okay. Because you don't know what you don't know. And we didn't know what to ask, and I gave up pushing.
And we don't have the training. And on some level, we need to be able to trust the medical people that we deal with. We need to be able to know that we can rely on them to check everything or cover all the bases or double check, do those tests, as you said. And that must have affected your trust in the medical profession also.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, I have very strongly encouraged my husband to see a different doctor, but he's very loyal to this fellow because he's been seeing him for 20 years. And I think actually that's sometimes where things can go wrong, is that the doctor just gets to know you as a bit of a friend. I think they know you, they know your history, they know your case. So they stop being curious. And I think for men in particular, if they're given the, oh, you're okay. Oh, good, I'm okay. And they kind of take that on board and forget that actually you're not listening to your own body. You're not trusting yourself and what's going on for you. And burying your head in the sand is actually just going to make things 1,000 times worse, because the problem gets bigger. And, I've seen many men who have had this problem of being unwell, whether it ended up being a cancer or an MS diagnosis or something else, that perhaps they could have had intervention earlier, which may or may not have, I don't know, but it may have made a difference. It would have made a difference to their care earlier on, rather than being extremely stressed, wondering if it's A, B, C, or D, when they could have just figured it out earlier and started dealing with it. So, this sense of, I'm just going to ignore it and hope it goes away. Well, guys, it doesn't go away.
And if you leave it, you end up being left with a lot of what ifs afterwards. Like you said, what if we acted earlier or tested earlier, double checked? And that's something you can never answer.
That's right. Especially, with not, well, not in our case, no one has said this to me specifically, but, I've heard people say, oh, if we got it 6 months earlier, it wouldn't have spread. The thing with brain cancers, it doesn't spread, it stays in the brain. But for other people with cancers elsewhere, even skin cancers, I know a guy who had a skin cancer on his back. So fair enough, he couldn't see it, he didn't know it was there. But his partner one day said to him, there's something on your back here, mate. And off he went. And it had spread to his lymph nodes. I think it's his lymph nodes. And it ended up being testicular cancer. So he had to deal with then that. Fortunately, he pulled through that, and he's doing quite well. But, it could have been deadly if he had left it a few more weeks.
So can you tell us just a little bit, you mentioned it's a brain tumor. What is glioblastoma? Is it an aggressive, you said it's the worst kind that you can get.
Because there's no cure. People go into remission if they're lucky. And because the brain, is such an intricate organ, it depends where it is. So if it's right in the middle, some people can't even have an operation. They can't get radiation either. They can just have chemotherapy. My husband's is where his speech center is, so they could not get it all out. If they did, he wouldn't have been able to communicate at all, including writing. So when his speech is bad, he can't write either. So it depends where it is. It depends how big it is. And then there are lots and lots of different variations of brain tumors that depend on your DNA. So and please don't ask me all the different types because I don't know, but there's something called methylated versus unmethylated. And if you're methylated, it's better for chemo. If you're unmethylated, then you're resistant to chemo. There's all these different types. Wild type is what my husband's is, which means it will spread. There's type 1, 2, 3, 4. There's all these different types. And I didn't realize this until I joined this Facebook group and people say, hi, I'm new here and this is what I've got and blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen that one before. So this is what makes brain cancer so difficult to treat because they're all different. And, the research might find that they can treat one particular type, but it won't have any impact on all the other types. And then people, and I'm assuming this is the same with other types of cancers, that some people react very badly to the chemo and they can't continue. So, and the radiation as well. The radiation causes often more damage to the brain because it burns the brain, which then has more side effects. So it's a really tricky cancer with very serious consequences, and the average life expectancy is 2 years.
Gosh, what a shock.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
something that also comes with a cancer diagnosis is the huge learning curve, because suddenly you have to deal with something that's never been relevant in your life ever before. And
right.
It's interesting that you said you didn't go to Google. In our family, we always talk about Dr. Google because you can find so much information on there. And it's important to be aware of the dangers of, consulting Dr. Google. But the learning curve is immense because it's a whole new world that one has to discover, because suddenly you find yourself in it and you have to learn everything, especially if you're a curious person by nature. You want to understand it and make sense of it. And we have questions like, what caused it? Where did it come from? How could I have prevented it? And all those things. Can you tell us a little bit about what your journey was with your husband in terms of learning and reaching some understanding or grasp of what is going on?
Yeah, well, we've been told by the neuro-oncologist as well as the medical oncologist as well as a naturopath and our GP and the radiologist and the general neurologist that there is no known reason why people get brain cancer, that there's absolutely nothing that you can do to prevent it. So that for me, someone who likes to feel a sense of control is really hard, because I'm like, well, if we don't know how we got it, then how do we get rid of it? So that's been really a big struggle. I've noticed that this is not just with myself, but with a lot of people in the support group. We say this is our journey, because it's not just about the person with the illness. And this is probably true for a lot of people. We are doing this and we are doing that, and we're going to try our best and all of that. So it definitely becomes a very entwined scenario. But we've learned, well, I'm very much into natural and alternative health as well. So I've got a couple of girlfriends, fortunately, who are naturopaths. So they've given us some support in terms of gut health to help with the side effects of the medication, to help with the blood brain barrier, the gut brain, all that sort of stuff. So there's no nasty things going from the gut into the brain. We've linked up to a doctor who is a naturopath and a researcher who does a lot of stuff with cancers, and she's talking to us about trialing out something that's not prescribed by the doctors, but we're kind of willing to give it a go at this point. And our doctor did tell us that people with brain cancer seem to be the most informed people with cancer that he knows. and that people with brain cancer ask him about all the natural supplements. And I said, well, that's because we're desperate and that's because there's no real option given to us. And there's a lot of natural supplements like boswellia and turmeric and other things that you can take to reduce brain swelling, which has less side effects than the steroids that you're given. So, you know, it's kind of like you take the steroids to reduce the brain swelling so you can function, but then it has all these other side effects on the body, and you're not supposed to be taking them for too long. So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, which is why you research, you know.
And we understandably want to try everything and give it our best
Yeah.
effort because we want to survive, or if that's not possible, live as long as we possibly can to be with our loved ones at the best quality that we can achieve. It's a huge challenge. It's a huge uphill journey to live with cancer and to be the person close to somebody with that. And I know your husband is not feeling well enough to join us on this conversation. Can you share a little bit with us about how this has affected him? Has he expressed his feelings about not acting immediately, about ignoring it, and now dealing with this? Does he talk about this? Is he able to process all of that?
Yeah, it's interesting. He's a very intelligent man, and he had to give up work, you know, the day of the operation. He hasn't been able to work since then. But he still thinks very clearly. So he knows what he wants to say, but he can't get the words out. And it's worse at night. And he's really struggled with energy too. And there's been falls and broken glasses and all that sort of stuff. But I think he knows how strongly I feel about him ignoring my pleas. You know, there was one night where I basically yelled at him, excuse the language, but I just said, this is not a fucking alcohol problem. This is a brain issue. And he just was like, and off he went to bed. So he hasn't actually told me how he feels about that aspect of it because I think there's so much going on now for him. You know, he was a general manager of a small company, a business that he built up from one person to 15 at one point, which, you know, that's how he identified himself, and he just had to stop. He was very independent. He's not been able to drive since February, and he will never drive again. He wasn't able to fill up his, you know, little medicine thing we used. You put your medicines in. I don't know what that thing's called. He wasn't able to do anything. So he's just been fully focused on survival and the day-to-day. So, but now he understands the value of therapy, and he has been seeing someone to help with his grief, his loss, his fear around dying. And I have too. And, you know, it's really important to get that support because I actually, you know, I've spent a good part of today crying, to be honest. So maybe I'm all teared out now. I'm a little bit, or I've just zoned out. I don't know. But, you know, I do have lots of good days, but there are days where it's really tough. And, you know, I'm still working, but I have cut that right down as well to support him taking to his appointments. And I think there hasn't been a second that I haven't been worried about him. So I work from home a good part of the time. So I might be doing a Zoom, or I might actually have a client here in my office, and I've got one ear out there for a fall or something. And you know, when I work elsewhere for one day a fortnight. I kind of encourage him to bring a friend over. Oh, is someone going to come and have a coffee with you today? And oh, what are you going to do today? You know, because it gives me peace of mind that someone's going to be here. So it's really stressful to see someone you love go through this.
Yeah. And it's very stressful to be the supporting person as well. You mentioned that you try and have somebody over when you're not there. So being watchful and mindful of his needs and taking care of everything is one thing, but there's also a fear of leaving them alone and a fear of something happening to them while you're not there. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there was one time I came home and I looked at him and I said, "What happened? You've got some dirt on your face." And then I looked at his arms and he had blood on his arms, and he said he was trying to hang out the clothes and he slipped off the path to the clothesline and he fell on the grass and then he couldn't get up. Yeah, so that was really hard, and I was an hour away and I wasn't going to be home for another 5 hours. So, but he didn't tell me it. And I think if I hadn't noticed that he had these bruises and scratches and a bit of dirt on his face, that he wouldn't have told me. He would have just not told me. So, we kind of made a deal then that he wasn't going to attempt washing or anything like that if he wasn't feeling well. But he's come a long way since then. That was very soon after the operation when there was a lot of swelling and things like that. But because he's a very independent man and he's a guy that really helps a lot in the house, he's not one of these guys that expects me to do it all. We're a team, and so it helps for him to do things. And that's great. And at the same time, it scares the crap out of me because I would rather him just sit and watch TV and not hurt himself, which is awful. I hear myself saying that and I go, oh my God, I can't be like that. He has to live his life. But I guess, over the months now, I'm getting more confident that he can do more and he knows his limits a little bit more. Not quite. I'm still helping with that, but we're figuring it out.
It's quite an adjustment. You mentioned earlier the grief and the loss. There's so much loss of the normality and the way life was and the independence. And it's important also for somebody to remain as independent as possible and be able to do as much for themselves as possible as their condition deteriorates. And it's also very, very difficult to witness that, to see someone that you love deteriorate and get worse and worse, but literally see someone dying, to live that with them. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah. When I first met him, he was doing triathlons. He's done
Sure.
Ironman. If you're not sure what that is, that's basically a marathon, a 180K bike ride, and a 5K swim in one day. So, so he was very healthy, very fit, very independent, and to go from that and it was just like that. It was just like that.
Very
He
sudden.
very sudden. And he told all his LinkedIn community that he was retiring early, and then it was maybe a month or so later that he actually told them the truth. But he wasn't in an emotional place where he could tell people the reality of what was going on. So yeah, it's a hard space. It's a really hard space, and I think until you're in it, it's really hard to understand it. And I actually had my cousin passed away from a brain tumor last year. He was only 52, and he similarly ignored he knew that there was something wrong. He was apparently having intense headaches until he basically passed out from the pain of a headache. And that's how he ended up in hospital and got diagnosed and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, it's hard.
So an important thing that comes up for me as I'm listening to you is the value of being in touch with our bodies, having a deep, healthy connection with our bodies and listening to it so that we can pick up when something changes, so that we can become aware when there's something wrong, when something's not
Absolutely.
right. So
Yeah.
it's so important that we cultivate that connection to our physical being. And that's unfortunately something that we're not raised with. We're not taught from a young age in the Western cultures, at least. And there are cultures that are much better at this than we are. I
Yeah.
wish that there would be more of that, because then we can pick up when something is wrong,
Yeah.
because we
I
feel it
100%
within
agree.
ourselves. We sense it, you know?
Yeah. And I'm wondering if women sense it more or pay attention to it more, or I don't know. But yes, it's about being present with your body. And a
Yes.
lot of men have this idea that, uh, and women too, but most more men, I believe that, I can't take a day off to go to the doctor. I'm too
Mm,
busy. I'm too
mm,
busy to be sick.
mm,
And to those guys, I say, well, are you too busy to get well, or are you willing to die for your job? Even if it's your own business, are you willing to die for it? Because that's the reality. That's what can happen.
mm.
It's a really harsh reality, but that's what it is. And this idea that my business needs me, well, so does your family, so do
Very
you.
true.
Yeah.
Mm,
We only have one life, you know,
mm,
whether or not you believe in alternate lives and past lives and future lives and going to heaven and all of that. We only have one life right here, right now.
mm,
And your work and the desire to have more and more money, it doesn't matter how rich you are, it doesn't matter how wealthy you are, it doesn't matter how famous you are or how many followers you have, or any of that
mm.
rubbish. At the end, we're all going to end up dead. So
We do, yes.
whether or not that's now or later on in the future, because we actually got in touch with our body, it can be up to you.
Mm. And there's also a lot of value in listening to the people who live close to us, because they observe us all the time, and they
Yes.
notice when something's different. As I'm saying this, I'm thinking sometimes we don't notice it when we live closely, because the change is so subtle or gradual that we sometimes don't notice it. But it's very valuable
Yes.
to listen to the people close to us when they say, I think something's changed. I'm picking up something. Very, very important. To
Yes.
take it
Actually,
seriously.
that's so true. And that is what actually led to me going to the doctor with my husband, because he had his son and his best friend come over to watch football. And
Mm-hmm.
he just had one drink and he was slurring his words. And his friend said to him, "Whoa, what's going on with you? How much have you had to drink today?" And I just remember I was in the kitchen and I heard him say that. And I was just like, oh my God, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew that someone else had noticed it
Just
and
also.
I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
going crazy. And that I knew
Yeah.
that my husband would actually go, oh, shit, this is actually a problem. Like someone's
Mm-hmm.
calling me out on this. And I really hope that people out there do call out their friends when they notice that this is a problem.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, whether it be a memory thing, like don't think, oh, I won't say anything because I'll hurt their feelings, or oh, that's cruel. You can say things in a gentle way, like, hey, I'm worried about you. I'm
Mm,
noticing that you're a little more forgetful lately. Are you okay?
mm,
It might just be stress. And even so, if it's just stress, then ask your friends, because that might be an opportunity for them to talk to you about what's going on.
mm. Yeah,
Mm,
very well said. And the reminder also that we can do it in a gentle way and we can be kind about it. It should show that we care. And communication is the key. Yes.
mm,
So,
absolutely.
Leanne, what lies ahead for you? Where are you going from here now?
Mm, who knows?
Mm,
We've booked a couple of little holidays. Um, we're hopeful, but the doctors are not.
mm,
So we're kind of living. I have to say, it feels like, I'm a bit shocked that it's July already, halfway through July at that. It feels like this year is just like going so fast. And we can't keep up with it. But we managed just in the last 2 days to book a 5-day trip by the beach. You know, it's Grant's kind of bucket list thing to see the Great Barrier Reef, and neither of us have actually seen it. So we're going to do that. And there's a couple of other things that he would like to do. And one of his daughters lives interstate, or two of his daughters live interstate. So we're going to spend some time there as well. So for us, it's actually, it's kind of like that old, you know, that saying, I don't know if you guys see it over there in Africa, it's like, you know, live life like it's your last day and all that sort of stuff. So that's what we're going to do. You know, we're going to have as much fun as we can. But at the same time, we're being very mindful of what we're eating, what we're putting into our bodies, not overdoing it, not pushing him or myself. You know, I've cut right back on work for the next few months, just seeing some current clients rather than accepting new clients. So it's really about looking after ourselves and knowing our limits, and yeah, having some fun, seeing our friends, being really mindful of what we're capable of, and not falling into a depression hole, because the last thing we want is to spend the next 6 months crying. That would be horrible. I reserve my right to cry afterwards, and I don't know. I really don't know. I'm still hopeful. There's still a chunk of me that goes, okay, no, he can do this, and that gives me the strength to carry on. And it might be naivety or false hope, but if it makes us have good days, then so be it.
What do we have if we don't have hope, hey?
Well, we might as well end it, really. That sounds a bit brutal, but that's my feeling, is like, if we don't have hope, then what's the point? We're going to spend the next 6 months crying, being depressed and anxious in bed. That's not how we want to live. Like, you know, his thing is just, let's have fun, and he keeps saying it, let's just have fun. So, okay, what are we going to do to have fun? And there's not a great deal we can do because he's pretty exhausted. But if we can get on a boat, one of those glass bottom boats, or if he's allowed to float around and see the reef with a snorkel, then that's what we're going to do.
Make it happen. So live
Yep.
life as much as you can.
Exactly.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you as a couple get to the point where you share this information with family and the close loved ones, children? How does one do that?
With great difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
I think we learned a lot from my cousin's journey, because him and his partner kept that secret, even from his mother. And
Sure.
he's an only child, and to this day, you know, it's been a year. She finds it incredibly painful that she didn't know that he was terminal until he was in palliative care. Up until then, she hoped that he was going to get better. She thought he was going to get better. So we've learned from that no, that's not the way to go. That's really that idea of, I'm going to protect everybody by not telling them. It does not work. It doesn't give people time to process their emotions. It doesn't give you any support. And it's just not fair, really, in my view. So we're not going to do that. So how do we tell them? All of our children are adults now. So Grant has 4 children, 41 to 31. And I have 2 children, 24 and 21, nearly 22. With the really tough news, we call them one by one and tell them. We have had a family Zoom, because people live all over the place, and we have brought them together on a Zoom call and told them all together. We've learned that telling our friends one by one is horrendous, because you're just talking about it for hours. You know, we have actually a lot of friends between us. So I've actually created a messenger chat with all our close friends in there. And I give them some information, but not all of the information, because
Mm,
it's really hard information, and I found that it was worse for us. So we give them a little bit of hope, but we also tell them that, well, the radiation didn't work, so we're going to try something else. And
mm,
when we see people face to face, we tell them that sort of stuff then. But we've decided that we don't like the phone call stuff. It's too hard.
mhm.
Um, yeah, it is really hard. You've experienced that yourself. It must have been
Mm.
really hard telling friends the
And it's
diagnosis and all of that.
actually exhausting to have to tell the story over and over to
Mm,
different people. And it's as if all your energy and your time and devote all your consciousness to it. I remember myself, I got to a stage where I felt that I just don't want to talk about it so much anymore because it was like
yeah.
consuming my whole
Uh,
existence. Yeah.
yes. And then not only are you trying to hold your stuff together, you tell someone, they're understandably shocked and upset. So then
Mm,
you're trying to calm them down. It's like, oh man, this is
mm,
this is
mhm,
too much. I can't do this.
mm,
And then it made Grant worse as well.
mm,
So because the stress of it all, his exhaustion was worse, his speech was worse. So we had to really sit down and go, okay, how can we manage this? And that's when I had a chat to a couple of friends and said, what do you reckon if I do a messenger group? So it's not on Facebook, it's just between us. And people, if they want to ask questions, they can ask a question there. I'll answer it, and then everyone gets the answer at the same time.
mm.
So it is a lot easier.
Okay, well, that's a great idea for anybody who's in a similar situation to do it that way because it can become an administrative nightmare because
Mm,
to get
yeah.
all the information out to the people who need to have the information, all the communication.
And then you forget someone, and then you're like, oh my God, did I tell
Mm,
that person? I don't know, I can't remember. Oh shit. And then a week later, oh my God, I didn't tell that person. Oh my God. So then it becomes, well, why didn't you tell me? You told that person. So it's just all in the group. And nobody posts anything else in there other than, we're here for you, we love you, what can we do for you? All that sort of nice stuff. It's not
mm.
a big chit chat. It's just purely for that.
And talking about friends and family and the support that one gets, can you perhaps give some just practical tips or
Mm,
insight? What works
yes.
for a couple like yourselves who you find yourselves in this situation in terms of support and contact and people wanting to do things for you and help you and be there for you? What works and
Mm,
what doesn't work? I've had clients who've told me they get a cancer diagnosis and the people are all coming to the house and everything and it's exhausting for them. It's too much. They don't want to be bothered and eventually they don't want to talk
mm,
to anybody. Can you maybe just
mm.
say what works well? What works well for you? What is too much? What should people do or rather not do?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. And at the beginning, and even, well, now I'm a bit better at it, but when people say, what can I do for you? I'm like,
Mm,
I don't know. My husband's dying. I don't know. I was in such a state, I had no idea. Like we've been ordering meals to our house, cooked meals, not Uber Eats or whatever, like proper,
mm,
healthy cooked meals to our house because neither of us have been in a emotional state where we can cook. Just feels
mm,
all too much. Everything is taking 20 times longer. Comes
mm,
nighttime, cooking, oh my God. So sometimes, yes, bringing over a meal, and I
mm,
would really recommend bringing over a healthy meal,
mm,
like bringing over pizza and things like that. We can order that ourselves. But
mm,
if you want to cook something, try and bring over a really healthy meal, and that does not mean pasta, which is really easy and yummy, but it's not really that healthy.
mm.
Um, and actually offering things. So in amongst all of this, we actually moved house as well.
Wow.
And I know that was torture. But I had some friends come over to sit with Grant. And what they actually did was clean the house while I was at work.
Mm-hmm.
And she just cleaned it so that when we moved, it wouldn't be such a big job. Another time, friends came over and they packed up a room for us. So practical things are really valuable. So I would suggest instead of asking, what can I do for you? Offer. Can I come over and cut the grass? Can I come
Mm.
over and wash the dog, or take the dog for a walk, or look after the kids for you while you have a sleep? Can I do your washing?
Yes.
Can I
Okay.
fold your laundry, vacuum the floor? Anything that you want to do. And if you do go for a visit, don't stay too long.
Mm.
Read your person who's sick.
Mm.
Watch them, watch their cues. If they start yawning, if they start fading, just go. Like, just say,
Mm.
okay, I see you're tired. I'm going to let you go now, and go. Don't linger, because it's really hard work. Um, yeah, and just be there for them. You know, just be there. It might just be, can I come over and watch TV with you?
Mm.
And if the person, and give the person the opportunity to say no. If you send
Mm.
them in a text message, you might say, I'm very happy for you to say no. Can I do blah, blah?
Yeah,
But be mindful also that a lot of people don't like asking for help. So
that's
people
also.
won't ask for help. I don't ask for help. I really don't. When people offer, I'll say yes, but been a rare occasion where I would say, can you come and do blah? Like,
Mm.
if friends offer, or this, when we moved to this new house here, um, there were things like the doorbell was buzzing for a whole minute when someone rang it, and I didn't even have the brain space to read the instructions to see how to change it to 10 seconds.
Mm.
It's little things like that that
Yes.
can make a difference.
Okay. And what I've also encountered myself is then for people to not take it personally if you say no or no, thank you.
Yes,
Have you
yes,
experienced that as well?
yeah,
To
for sure.
not to be feel hurt. People shouldn't feel hurt if you say, don't come over today or.
Yeah, it's not personal. It's just where you're at. The other offer of help that is really good, actually, I really needed some time out, and I had a workshop to go to, which was more of a personal development workshop. And I
Mm-hmm.
had friends come and stay with Grant while I did that,
Mm.
because he was in a really bad state. It was a few weeks after the operation. Um, and they did it for both of us so that I could get some time out, because they understood that I needed space as well.
Mm.
So it might even be, to the carer, you go out, go get yourself a massage, go spend a night away. I'll stay here with the sick
Yes.
person. I'll
Mm.
help you out.
But that's
Because the
very
carer
generous.
really needs, yeah, the carer really needs some time out as well. It really is exhausting, because not only are you now trying to look after yourself, your kids, your pets, the house, still work, still bring in money, and
Mm.
do all the medical appointments and looking after the person.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I was about to ask you, what about yourself and the support that you get? You've mentioned you
Mhm.
have friends and the families there and people have helped. You've given so many beautiful examples of how people have supported you, which
Mm.
is something to be grateful for. But ultimately, at the end of the day, how do you, what do you need as the partner of the person who is battling with this illness?
Mm.
You've got the practical support and you've managed to arrange things in a way that helps you to function as well as possible. But you have
Yeah,
a lot of stress too.
yeah. I think personally what I need is just time out. So
Mm.
it's going to sound weird maybe, or selfish, I don't know, but sometimes when my husband goes to bed early and I have a night to myself, it's nice, and I don't really do anything. Sometimes I just sort of, scroll on Facebook, because that's all I have the energy for, or
Mm.
I might talk to a friend, but actually I don't really do that very much, because I'm drained of energy by then.
Mm.
Um, or I just sit on the lounge and pat the dog or something. Um, but have a bath, things like that. So I think rest. What
Rest, yes.
carers need is rest. Yeah. So I will have a nap in the afternoon. Um, a friend of mine suggested that I turn my morning alarm off and just allow my body to wake up when it needs to wake up, which has
Mhm.
actually been a blessing. Here's a little
Yes,
tip for you. She said, you're waking up to an alarm. Your body is alarmed. It's shocked into waking up, and it's not a natural state. It's like, oh
very
yeah,
true.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So now I don't have an alarm, and I just make sure my clients are seen later. And I naturally wake up around 7:30, which I think is reasonable.
Yeah.
And I'm not forcing myself to wake up any earlier. And that's important because a lot of people who are in this position of being carer can't sleep.
Mm.
So,
And being
I'm sometimes,
overwhelmed,
yeah,
sorry, being overwhelmed with all the responsibilities, they often tend to neglect the taking care of themselves physically and emotionally also, because there's simply not time and space for it, or they just don't have the capacity for it at the end of the day.
yeah. And as a psychologist, I really get how important that is. So that is something I make a priority, that I do see a therapist, whether it be on Zoom or face to face, because I understand the value of that. And without that, I don't think we'd be having this conversation,
Mm.
because that has really helped me process a lot of grief, a lot of fear, a lot of anger, resentment. Like I have let it out, Sinta. Like, I have
Mm.
yelled and I have screamed and I have really processed a lot of emotion. And I think without that, I would just be a mess, and then I wouldn't be able to help him. So, we would be a real big mess together. And carers absolutely need to get support. And there are, well, in Australia, there is anyway a lot of support groups out there as well. So if you don't have family and friends like we do, then reach out to support groups, whatever the
Mm.
condition is, whether it's, a cancer or, MS or whatever it is. There's lots of different support groups. So I highly recommend that people do that. And this one, in particularly for the men, is don't be too proud to ask for that help, because it's not just about the patient. The carer really needs that support too.
Very, very important. I'm so glad you mentioned it, because we need support. We can't do it by ourselves. And we
Mm.
need the mental health support
Yeah.
apart from the practical support. It's very, very important. It's a very, very
Yes.
difficult journey that you are on. And I'm so glad you brought that up. And I'm so grateful that you've shared your story, Leanne. Thank you so much. And please also thank your husband for allowing his story to go out there. I know this is going to be inspirational and just touching very many people out there. Can we finish off with just a thought on your husband? How is he doing? Where is he at, considering his life journey and what might be coming to an end in dealing with all of that?
Mm. I think he's starting to accept where he's at.
Mhm.
And a big thing that he's starting to understand is that his value is not what he did. His value is who he is.
Mhm.
And I don't love him because he was an executive, you know, businessman, blah, blah, blah. That's not why I fell in love with him. I fell in love with him because he is a beautiful person,
Mhm.
and he's starting to realize that I'm not going to leave him because he can't do his job anymore and things have changed. Um, and I think that's really important, that as individuals, we realize that what we do is not our value. Our
Mhm.
value is how we treat other people, how we behave, how we treat animals, how we love
Mhm.
and care and respect for others. And he is wonderful at that. He is a very respectful man. He shows a lot of love to his friends. He's a hugger. He'll hug all his mates,
Mhm.
which is a beautiful thing to see them all, giving
It
themselves
is. I
big
love it.
hugs. Yeah. Um, and that's his value. And he's starting now to finally understand that,
Mm.
which I think is a beautiful thing. And it's
That
just a
is
shame
beautiful.
that he didn't realize that before.
Mm. Indeed. Sure. Yeah, that is beautiful. And such a beautiful journey to be on, even if it's a tough one. Hey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wish you all of the very best, and to your husband too. And I'm hoping to keep in touch with you and learn more about how, to know how this goes. Wish you all the best. And I know this is difficult and challenging and frightful and all of those things together. But thank you so much for taking the time to share and let us into your personal life. I feel very grateful and humbled and honored to sit here and talk to you. Thank you very much, Leanne.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel the same way, and I haven't really spoken about it in this length in a public forum before. So thank you, and I appreciate you understanding the value of this type of conversation as well.